Well, welcome back. This is Steve Sparks, and I'm with Ethan Katz, the Astros' new assistant pitching coach. And you're listening to Astroline. And Ethan's been the main pitching coach for the Chicago White Sox for the last 5 years, has worked with a couple of other organizations as well. 42 years old, Ethan, uh, onto the next journey in your baseball life. Welcome to Houston.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
What was the interview process like? It sounds like that they had a lot of candidates, and you came out on top. So, but what was it like?
It actually was like out of all the processes that I went through, this was one of the ones I really liked. I flew out to Houston. I got to meet everybody. So it was, when you do the Zoom thing, you get to know a little bit, but you just when you get to meet somebody face to face, it's always a little bit better. So, I talked to I think like 8 panels. So there's like I met everybody, and I got a chance to speak to everybody, and I really enjoyed every conversation I had. Joe was amazing through the process. So was Josh, and so was Dana. Those were some of the most time was spent with them. But it was great. I really enjoyed it. I was, when I got on the plane, I told my wife, I was like, I didn't know anybody from Houston, really. The only person that I happened to know was Bennett Sousa, just because I had coached him, and De Los Santos. And so it was like, okay, I don't really know anybody here. This is a new beginning. But when I left there feeling like I really gelled well with everybody, and I really enjoyed all the conversations. And I told my wife, I was like, this is somewhere I definitely see myself being very happy at.
Seems like the Astros have had a great infrastructure as far as their pitching goes, not only at the major league level, but even with player development. It feels like they've just get guys better. Bill Murphy is who you're replacing out in the bullpen. And I think he was probably part of the analytical side, mostly at the major league level. As a former player yourself, how did you get so in tune with the analytical side of baseball?
It just was something that it was like when I was with the Mariners, it was kind of they challenged us. They kind of like this is where we're going, this is the direction, and they kind of challenged us to kind of get on board and learn this stuff. And it was like, okay, I love what I do. I want to be good at it. So I spent a lot of time going upstairs, like, talking to a lot of analysts, just trying to like understand, okay, what is this? What is that? And then obviously the game has just grown. That was like 2017, 16. It was like a while ago. And it continued to grow, and I just continue to try to learn as much as possible because I know, players take information from every which way. So like, whatever conversation we need to have, I want to make sure I'm well versed to be able to have that conversation and connect with the player.
As a former player, are you like me, and like the more you learn, the more you wish you knew when you were playing?
1,000%. I
Yeah.
feel so shortchanged in my career. I wish I could have maybe coached myself and just like seen a different lens. But it's amazing how much the game has evolved. And I mean, I got done playing I think '09, and here we are now, and it's changed so much.
It's changed a lot. I mean, you've been the pitching coach for the White Sox the last 5 years, and even probably in 2021, you're probably going, man, that sounds antiquated at this point. Every year, I mean, we're learning more and more. But one thing that we do kind of know is that strikeouts play very well at the big league level. It takes a lot of chance out of the equation. But also, it seems like for bullpens, that when you give another team different looks and you have enough guys that can match up differently, that usually plays better than not. If you got a lot of guys that are throwing from different arm angles with different stuff, what do you think about that?
1,000%. Like, obviously I was in the Central, and you had teams like Cleveland, Kansas City, Detroit. These were heavy platoon teams that would like really match up and try to exploit bullpens. So like being able to have a wide variation and trying to get guys in good matchups. You're not going to win every matchup, but you want to try to win 2 out of 3 when you put a guy in. It's very hard to get 3 out of 3, but knowing that there's going to be a lot of movement on the other side coming from the bench, based on where you are in the lineup, It's super important to have different variation, different looks because you have the same guy and they're ready for it. They're ready to combat that. So it really helps having a wide variety of arm angles, different pitch types, just to be able to try to help guys put them in the best pockets possible.
One of the things that we love to talk about, Ethan, whenever you'd go out to the mound for a mound visit with the White Sox, was your background as far as who you coached in high school. Do you mind sharing that experience and what that was like with kind of a star-studded cast in high school?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously in the moment, I had no idea that there was going to be three first rounders, all stars, World Series champions, ginormous contracts. Like, I had no idea that that was going to be a part of the equation, let alone first rounders. I just knew they were very talented. I just got done playing, so I knew what like a professional player looked like. But I also knew the hurdles from a high school kid going into pro ball. A lot of them do fail. And but the one thing I did know was all three were mature beyond their years. And if given the opportunity, I knew they would flourish. What they would make, what kind of careers they would have, I had no idea. I was just living in the moment, trying to help them, enjoying it. Each one, their journey was completely different, in the sense that like Lucas was a very talented arm, needed a ton of um, support and help along the way to kind of maximize his talents.
That's Lucas
Um,
Giolito.
yeah, Lucas Giolito. Jack Flaherty was a guy that, he was a very good strike thrower. The velo, he was still like everyone thought he was going to be a shortstop first. And I always thought he was going to be a pitcher. And I always reminded that him on a daily basis. And, he developed his slider in high school that he now is like one of his key pitches in pro ball. And then Max, was a really gifted left-handed arm
Max
that could
Fried.
run it up. Max Fried,
Yeah.
sorry. And if that velo and that curveball, was overpowering hitters in high school, and I thought it was, he had a huge talent, a huge future. But like I said, I had no idea. There's so many variables for guys, especially pitchers, going into pro ball, their journey and how they're going to go, health, all that kind of stuff. You never know.
What was your
And
advice to him? What was your advice? I mean, it's a great point. Is like them having a guy who just went through that. You just played several seasons in the minor leagues. What did you tell him?
yeah, I just tried to like I was able to kind of see further for them, I guess you could say, and what they need. Obviously, helping them in the moment to be in high school. Like Lucas Giolito had a big time curveball in high school that overmatched hitters. Um, but I thought there needed to be more to it. Same thing with Jack. Jack had a really like kind of slower curveball and changeup, but I felt like there needed to be a wipeout pitch, what was the slider. So I was able to kind of knowing my experience and kind of seeing what I kind of could see the future of what might be needed and added. Which is my biggest thing is like development, right? And I didn't understand. I just wanted to help them, and I didn't realize I was helping their development in a further state than currently in high school. So it was, they did a lot of hard work. They did everything. I just was like a little piece of the puzzle that tried to help them along the way.
During the season, the major league season, once the season starts after spring training, in my experience, the main pitching coach, who would be Josh Miller, typically deals mostly with the starters. And I always felt like the bullpen coach dealt mostly with the relievers. So it's going to be a little bit different for you coming off the last 5 years, dealing with mostly starters with Chicago. What's going to be the difference for you on a daily routine?
Um, I don't know just yet, because I want to help support Josh in any way possible, whatever
Yep.
that may be. So it's kind of like figuring out where does he need certain areas addressed or help with. That's priority number one. But typically that's kind of how it's been. Like where I was with the White Sox, I spent a lot of time with the starters, and their bullpen coach spent a lot of time with the relievers, and I would assist with the relievers as well.
Yep.
So I just got to figure out what he needs and what he likes and what he wants. We haven't had those conversations right now because I'm just trying to get to know everybody in the organization. That's typically how it's been. But like I want to be able to, fulfill whatever needs he needs and whatever the organization sees it's important that I need to step in and do.
One of the biggest probably chores is to develop relationships with a lot of these players so you can kind of manage their workloads, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's like getting on the horn with all these guys, introducing myself, getting to know them. That's important. Start to build those relationships. That's something that I feel like I'm over my career. If you ask around the league and stuff like that, a lot of the pitchers I've would probably say I have a very good rapport with all of them, and that's step number one for me because I don't want to, I want to get to know them and see how I can help them.
You man it, or yeah, you were the coach for Lucas Giolito in high school, and also at the big league level with the White Sox. I think it was 18 to 19, one of the biggest transformations, or at least upticks in performance that we've seen in the last 10 years or so. Is his seasons from 18 to 19, I believe, when he was an all-star. But there was an obvious mechanical change that he made. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, he was, so every offseason, Max Fried, Jack Flaherty, we always got together in Los Angeles and we would work out and try to prepare them for their upcoming seasons. And, you know, 18 finished. It was a very hard year on Lucas. And he pretty much said to me, like, let's go to work. We got to, like, what do you got for me? Let's change this up. I need to do something more. He was getting worried about not just like being a big leaguer, but actually staying. And
Yeah.
it literally was like, okay, this is what I'm seeing. Let's give him a plyo ball. I said, throw it. And he was like, that didn't feel too good. And that's my point. Like, you're just not consistent right now. So that started like the transformation. Then we did some lower half stuff. They kind of helped him along the way. And then like, as the time went on in the off season, he was throwing bullpens and it was just like, wow, this is like the deception's off the charts. The ball's flying out of his hand in a different way that nobody had really seen. The
And it looked to me
changeup,
like, in layman's term, like he had just shortened his stroke. Once he took the ball out of the glove, he just shortened things up big time, right?
yeah, and that just happened organically. Like the plan wasn't necessarily to like put the arm in a better position. Was it supposed to be that short or how like no, it wasn't kind of like the steps were like kind of let's try to get you in a better spot. The arm did need to short it up. Was it the plan to be that short? Not really. And it just kind of he felt really good with it. And I had him throw the football around, kind of acting like a quarterback, to kind of really understand getting on time a little bit more with some other drills. And it just kind of really he's like, man, this feels really good.
Mm.
And not only that, the deception, like that's one thing that like a lot of guys won't talk a lot about, but the deception was off the charts because you could no longer see the baseball. So it was just exploding out of his hand in a different way that it had been in the past, where guys could track it behind him, and the velo was down a little bit. So it just kind of really maximized his overall stuff and performance.
That's the thing I love. I mean, I don't think people talk about, for a hitter being able to track a baseball behind their midline. If you take the ball out of the glove and you can see it behind you, I mean, it's just easier to get in a rhythm as far as your timing goes for a hitter. But just taking it out barely and keeping it behind his body the whole time, it seems like it comes from nothing. How do you develop different ways for pitchers to increase their deception?
Um, Well, it's just kind of like, seeing what's going on, right? Like there's always like some clues that's going on if there needs to be a change. And the big league level will really expose that to certain guys. You can get away with a little bit more in the minor leagues. So, it's one thing that if you can add deception, whether it's like the front side getting a little bit higher, or maybe the arm swing gets a little bit tighter. It does add some added bonus to what they can do. So it's just trying to find ways, but making sure they're comfortable, right? And they're consistent and being able to repeat things. But adding some deception goes a long way. And it makes the Arsenal play a lot better too.
Hey, Ethan, one of the things you got to do, and I know that you were the coach for a lot of stars and some studs with Giolito and Carlos Rodon and Dylan Cease and Martin Perez, those guys. You're going to be around Josh Hader, Brian Abreu, these guys. Is the idea is just to kind of observe and develop some relationships before you kind of earn that trust?
Yeah, definitely. I want to be able to kind of get to know them. They've been very successful. I want to see how they go about their business. And then,
Yeah.
once we build that relationship, try to understand what they like to hear, stuff they like to do, and kind of learn, and especially, pick Josh's brain because he's been around them, and kind of understand what he's done with them, and just so I can kind of continue that support along the way. Um, so it's definitely let's build a relationship, let's get to know one another, and then do what I can to kind of help support along the way.
Talking with Ethan Katz, the Astros' new assistant pitching coach. Ethan, how did you get here? I mean, we know about your major league resume, but growing up in California, when did you start loving baseball, and what were your parents like? And take us through those steps.
Yeah, I mean, I basketball was first. My mom, I didn't have a father. My mom did everything. She uh, got me everywhere I needed to be for every single game. And she never missed a game until I got into pro ball. So she was a big supporter of mine. But I love basketball. I love the Clippers. And I grew up loving basketball, liking baseball, and then I just was more talented in baseball. So at high school, I was kind of make a decision, play varsity baseball as a freshman or continue to play basketball. And I opted, I thought I liked the sound of playing varsity baseball as a freshman because the sports kind of ran into each other. So
Been doing both.
I I I I chose baseball, and the rest was history. And back in the day, there was a draft and follow process. So I got drafted out of high school, and then I did the junior college route for a couple of years, and then I went to Sacramento State for 2 years, and then got into pro ball. So a little bit of everything, but I was born and raised in LA, and that's kind of I'm in Chicago now, but spent 37 years in LA. So.
Yeah.
Um, that's where me and my family started off.
Do you remember that moment when you thought, all right, I might be able to play this professionally?
It was always a goal to
Yeah.
be able to play pro ball. And in high school, in college, it was like that was always while other guys were like enjoying doing certain things in college, I was just focused on my next start and trying to be as good as possible to be able to maximize my talents. I knew the window was closing, there's small opportunities. And then when I got into pro ball, I was a 26 round draft pick, but I still believed I had a chance. And then when I went to independent ball after I got released, like when you're in it, you always believe you have a chance.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you shouldn't be doing it. So it kind of stepping away, like my heart started to drift a little bit and more into coaching, and that's why I chose coaching. But like I was always locked in on the being a professional player.
What's the main thing that you know now since you've been coaching that you wish you would have known when you were playing?
I wasn't good enough.
But is there
I,
any?
I,
I know there's pieces of equipment like the slow camera for me. I wish I would have access to that. But do you know anything that like you wish you would have changed your arm angle or anything like that?
I wish there was more information that we're privy to today. I would love
Mm.
to know how my fastball played. I was a big slider guy. I would have loved to know like what my slider metrics were and kind of just to be able to dig into it. Like there wasn't, back then I talked like this is so long ago. I got done playing in '09, but like, very rarely were things recorded or anything like that. Like every minor league game you can watch on TV now. That wasn't the case. So I just love to see myself move down the mound and what kind of, I mean, I have pictures. I really have never really seen myself throw. So I'm curious to see what it looked like. I'm curious to know what kind of data points I would have and what direction I would go. Like there's so many things that I'm curious about that just weren't
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's Ethan Katz. I mean, I feel like the Astros really lucky to have you. So I know we're going to get to know you a lot better as the year goes along. But welcome to Houston, and thanks for catching up with us.
I'm very excited. Thank you. Looking forward to meeting all you guys in person and getting to build relationships.
All right. Thanks, man. We'll be back with more of Astroline right after this.